Alright everyone, it's time to analyze the final presidential debate. It would have been the third one, but there was no second debate, unless you count Trump spending an hour sparring with the person that was supposed to be moderating the town hall there that was a stand-in. Trump did much, much better than the first debate. The first debate was a wash. The town halls were a disaster because basically Biden was playing wiffle ball with Stephanopoulos, and then that chick was constantly interrupting and grilling Trump. There's really no comparison. Again, it was basically the same thing as a debate, just not with Joe Biden, with a moderator with an earpiece instead. Trump obliterated Biden in this debate. This was a handy win, to the point where Megyn Kelly, you know, the person that Trump famously was crucifying there and saying she had blood coming out of her wherever, she has Trump derangement syndrome despite the fact that she's right-leaning. She's sort of like a rhino, I guess. She's sort of like a Project Lincoln Republican, almost. She's saying that he won handily. You're looking at all the online polls. The left is seething about them because they show Trump so far ahead. Everything other than the CNN Snap poll, which is like if you're polling the CNN audience, no fucking shit. The CNN audience thought Biden was the winner. Could it be that 99% of them have already made up their minds anyway and it doesn't really matter? That's not who the debater is trying to sway. Trump was on point. Trump was much more calm in demeanor. And as I said, the microphone muting rules would mean that Trump would have the ability to let Biden say dumb shit, number one, but also would allow Trump to get his message out more clearly than certainly the first debate, and it worked. I was 100% right in every possible way on that one, as predicted. Biden making a huge mistake towards the end of the debate. Now, I don't know how much it impacts voting outside of maybe Pennsylvania, Texas, a few of the oil states, because especially at the end of the debate, half the people have tuned out. He essentially said that he would indeed push to eliminate fossil fuel. Economically speaking, and Trump could have followed up more, because if you were to do the things that Biden openly proclaimed even earlier, it's like, well, we're going to end subsidies to the fossil fuel industry. That's akin to a massive new tax because it would cause the cost of all goods and services to skyrocket. That's exactly why these industries get subsidies. It's also why green energy gets subsidies, to incentivize its use and the slow displacement of fossil fuel. The free market is already handling that. The United States is the world leader in many ways on energy issues, specifically because we don't fuck around with the energy industry so much. Biden knows this. The Obama administration, one of the best things it ever did was stand back and not attack fracking. Allow more oil exploration. Allow the exploitation of fossil fuel. Now, Biden is coming out and doing what Obama did, lying to people. And Trump drove this point home very succinctly when he said, well, you know, you had 8 years and you didn't do anything. Well, we had a Republican Congress. By the way, that's not true. For the first 2 years of the Obama administration, they had a Democratic Congress. Still got nothing accomplished with regards to regulating fossil fuel, taking away subsidies. The closest they came was cracking down on coal production. Now, coal is sort of a dying vestige of, you know, the last century anyway. No offense to people, again, like Pennsylvania and parts of Kentucky and shit, where you have a lot of coal mining. But it's not as dynamic a force in our economy as natural gas or oil. Hell, not even as much, I think, now as wind and solar in some respects, or hydroelectric. Certainly not nuclear. It's sort of like the unloved a child of the family of energy production, I suppose. And more people enthused by the idea of thorium reactors or cold fusion or something like that. But this debate was much better. And we finally, and what I liked, is that a few times in the debate you actually got fleshed out campaign proposals. They were actually pressured, not only just by the moderator, but by each other, and by the way the moderator, much better than Chris Wallace or the town hall people, actually were pressured to flesh out specifically what they would do, not just vague sloganeering like, well, we're going to take care of COVID. Well, how are you going to take care of COVID? And obviously, you're not just going to magically wish it away. What specifically do you want to do? You've got two contrasting proposals. Trump is saying, look, we can't keep things closed down forever. The death rate is falling. Both of those things are true. Biden's saying, well, we will need to close everything down permanently. That's essentially his plan. An economic depression. Again, on energy and on other proposals, they finally had to actually build upon their sloganeering, including Trump. Of course, politicians prefer to sloganeer. That includes Trump, just so that we're aware. Let's not have Trump derangement syndrome. Let's not have Trump is God Emperor syndrome either. That being said, every time Biden was pressed and actually elaborated upon his proposals, he did exactly what I suspected he'd do, which was he made a gaffe. He screwed himself. You see, if you're Joe Biden, it is a bad idea to take a position on any issue because of the fractious nature of the Democratic Party. You have the far left, and then you have the not far left. They hate each other. They hate one another's ideas. The far left openly proposes political violence on a regular basis and has been rioting in U.S. cities now for almost half a year. They don't get along well with a neoliberal like Biden, so he just shuts up and doesn't say anything. But when he's able to be badgered by Trump with a moderator who did not largely stop him from doing so, and he's pressured, he says dumb shit like, yeah, we're going to destroy the fossil fuel industry. Yeah, we're going to phase it out. Yes, I'll end subsidies on the oil industry. Yes, I will pass a 3-month total lockdown in the United States over a declining number of actual coronavirus deaths. Yes, I will mess up the economy. Every single time that he elaborated, he hanged himself. This is exactly what Trump needed to do right before the election is held. And up until now, I've been assuming that a couple of the states that were, in play in 2016 would actually go blue. I've been assuming that Pennsylvania would tip towards Biden based on polling, which I think is beyond, the aggregate dragging rigged polls. I think that there's a genuine lead there. If you say to the people of Pennsylvania, I intend to destroy the fundamental basis of the economy of half of your state, which is basically what Biden did, that's not a good idea. If I go to voters in Ohio and I start talking about how I'm going to eliminate the gas industry, that's not a good idea. And certainly if I go to Texas and I want that to be in play, despite not campaigning there, it's probably a bad idea to say, yeah, all those oil rigs down there that feed like 500,000 jobs in your state, bye, you'll be on welfare. That's really not a good idea. Fracking, the fact is that he gave Trump as well easy attacks. It was weird because Biden, number one, he looked less energetic than at the first debate. Number two, he just said dumb shit every single time that he had the ability to do so. What he should have done, if I was giving Biden advice, I would have told him, don't even respond at all. Just say it's malarkey, and over, this has gotten tired. Joe tries to do this, I'm an everyman from the 60s sort of thing, and so he says, like, come on, man. That's his response to half of Trump's cross-examination of his platform. Oh, come on, man. People are dying. There's an empty seat at the dinner table. That's kind of gotten old, Joe. You're too old and incoherent to pull it off. You're not an everyman. You're a rich politician who's been in office for almost half a century. Trump made that point as well. Look, you've had all this time to do these things that you're talking about. Why didn't you do them before? Well, we had a Republican Congress when I was VP. Well, you were in the Senate for what, 35 years? 40 years? Come on, man. That's malarkey, as Joe Biden would say. It was funny because his immediate reaction on Twitter was just, malarkey. He's trying to do the Trump thing. He's trying to do the meme campaign thing. That's not a good idea either. Look, one of the few advantages Biden has consistently had is that his opponent is the meme candidate, and that means that people sort of not hip to the culture, they gravitate towards Biden because of his personality. They like the fact that he's a boring candidate. They want boring. Richard Spencer alluded to this. It wants to go back to sleep, return to normal, to vomit up the red pill and not see reality the way it is, and just let the system just grind on and grind you down. Who actually wants to do that? Seriously speaking, what kind of people actually want that old status quo that these people too were bitching about for 8 years under Obama and 8 years before that under W, and before that, technically, to some extent anyway, under Clinton. That was a little bit better because the economy was better. Trump's done a great job on most of these issues, and he made his case. He did it exactly as I suspected, which is that when he can talk uninterrupted, and Biden can talk uninterrupted, Biden did exactly what I said he would do yesterday. He would make mistakes. Inadvertently, Trump's style of debating in the first debate helped Biden. It helped him because as long as you can keep him sort of distracted from his train of thought, he doesn't have long enough to make a mistake. Biden made several major gaffes in the debate, threatening to shut down fracking, but on paper now he's a yay on getting rid of that. In fact, shutting down the entire fossil fuel industry, shutting down the U.S. economy entirely over, a disease which has apparently mutated back to being more cold-like than anything else in many cases, which is good. The fact that it's mutating is a good thing. Nature is helping us in a way that modern medicine apparently can't do yet. We don't have full gene editing capabilities to make ourselves immune to all diseases and then end up like that fucking weird book about the time machine and the dude fast forwards and there's like a bunch of like baby-like cherubic people wandering around and then there's like, what were they called, the Morlocks or something living underground that used to be poor people and now they're monsters. Good book, by the way. I can't remember, was it Wells who wrote that? I don't know, I'm getting off track. Anyway, Trump, this is an 80-20 win for Trump. This is actually in excess of what he needed. Trump needed to do several things going into this, and so did Biden. Biden needed to look about as energetic as in the first debate, and about as with it. I think he slightly failed on those. So he has an okay performance. Biden didn't shit his pants or anything. On that token, though, he kind of missed the mark, but not the huge amount. Trump needed to be more focused. He needed to make his case in a much more coherent manner than he did in the first debate, which by and large, admittedly, he was being badgered by the moderator there, by Chris Wallace. He wasn't badgered much by this moderator. She did a much better job and should be commended for being as unbiased as possible, I suppose, under the circumstances when you're working for a company that clearly fucking hates Trump. He needed to be more genteel. He needed to be more solemn, more presidential, and he accomplished that. And he needed to allow Biden to make mistakes, which he did. Predictably, Biden found himself incapable of going 2 minutes at a time without elaborating on his own positions to the point where parts of his audience would of necessity be turned off by what he was saying. Specifically, he lurched to the left during this interview on energy, on coronavirus shutdowns, and so forth. He lurched to the left. That's a bad idea. The far left is smaller than the center left. More with it, more actively campaigning in the political sense, more likely, I think, even among younger voters than in the past, to vote. That being said, you can't alienate the main base of your party by saying that you intend to essentially double everyone's cost of living by eliminating oil and gas. Now, again, would Biden actually do this? No. And Trump even openly alluded to this. Almost throwing him a line in the process. It was a dangerous move. He's like, well, you know, you said you were going to do all this stuff forever and you never did anything. Biden's not going to do jack shit. The fact is that the big line of the night for me is the "you're all talk and no action" line from Trump. That's exactly Biden's career in a nutshell. What has the fucker accomplished other than the '94 crime bill that he now disowns? Other than riding Obama's coattails and pretending that everything Obama accomplished in office, for what it's worth in a partisan sense, was somehow something that Biden was involved in. He wasn't involved. He was the court jester that was trotted out to make jokes. He was the funny grandpa figure behind Obama. He chose him because it's an old white dude, and it would make less of the Southern Democrats hate him, essentially, Obama. Because they would say, well, it's sort of like Biden was the Massa figure or something like that. It's a sort of weird racial play that you got in that administration. Trump did everything he needed to do. He obliterated Biden with this debate performance. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump wins re-election, in part based on this performance. Again, he needs a boost. Admittedly, if he goes into the election with the polling numbers he has currently, Trump will lose. What I've been figuring on is normally in the last week or so of the election, you get a narrowing in the polls. We're beginning to see that, I think, already. And the debates favored Trump. Now, you didn't have a second debate. The town hall that replaced it was an utter disaster and failure. Trump did reasonably well at the first debate, but it wasn't really substantive. What he needed was for a golden moment to just allow Biden to do what Biden does best. Hang his fucking self by saying dumb shit. Worked like a charm. Thank you, Debate Commission, by the way, for muting Trump and forcing him to be more calm, to be more quiet and relaxed, and let Biden do Biden. That's about all. Peace out.